Alright, now in this video, and this is probably going to be our shortest video, we're going to build the shocks. And one of the reasons I say it's going to be the shortest video is because I already built 3. This is something that I, wanted to really get to know, so I didn't want to do all 4 on camera. I wanted to practice a little bit, but it turns out that building shocks really isn't that hard. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to build one of the back shocks, the rear shocks, one of the back. Yeah, we're going to build one of the rear shocks. So the first thing you do is you take the titanium shaft and you take this little C-clip here, and you put that, pinch that on the titanium shaft. Like that. And then we're using these little, let me see exactly what they're called. These are the shock pistons, and they have different numbers. The manual called for a 1.7 in the back, so that's what we're going to use. But I have a whole assortment of these. The thing with these shocks is they give you all kinds of options of how to put these together. But I'm just going to do it the way the manual says. And then we put this little C-clip here to hold that piston in place, just like that. Now you need nylon spacers in here, and as it says the back you should use 2. So I have these 2 little nylon spacers. I don't know if you can see them, and we're just going to put them on there. Just like that. Okay, so that piston, we're going to get back to that in a second. We're going to build the shock now, and it takes a series of different seals and spacers and grommets. But first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this little cap here. Okay, that's going to be the base of what we're building. And the manual calls for green slime, and I've seen videos where the guys, they swear by it. But it's just one of those things where it didn't come with a kit, and I'm not going to hold up this build any longer. So I've just been using the shock oil to do this, and it seems to be working fine. I'm not a professional racer, so I'm just going to get through this build the best way I can. And if I feel like I need green slime in the future, then I'll get green slime. But I'm really tired of buying things for a kit that, I thought would be all-inclusive. So anyway, we put a little hat bushing in the bottom here. And then on top of that goes a grommet, which calls for the green slime. But what I did was I took a little bit of shock oil and put it on the cap that came with the shock oil bottle, so I can dip these things in here. And then just kind of lay them in on top. You have to get them all kind of lined up in there so that the holes line up. You're going to put your shaft through all of them at the end. And it looks daunting, but it's really not that tricky. Hardest part has been for me to keep the fuzzies out of there. So anyway, next thing, we're going to take a little nylon spacer here, put that over top of the first rubber seal, and the oil kind of has it all, sticks it all together. Then we take the next rubber seal. I'm going to put some more shock oil on that to help lubricate and seal this whole thing up. Just like that. Bushing came out a little bit at the bottom, so you're just going to have to fiddle with it until it all sits in there nice. And then we have one hat bushing goes up at the top. Like so. And then that thing's done. We have to take the shock body itself and this smaller gasket here. I'm going to get some oil on that as well. That just slips over here like this. Like that. And then this whole thing we put in the bottom of the cap, just kind of, you can see this, it just kind of slide that over top of the whole tower. Easier said than done. And then just screw this all tight here, and that keeps everything in line. And I can see daylight through that hole there, so everything's all lined up, ready to go. We need one more gasket up top here, so we take these are 12mm gaskets here, or what are they calling them? O-rings. O-rings. I'm sorry, I keep calling them gaskets. They're O-rings. Get a little bit of oil on that. Put that at the top. That'll seal off the top of the shock then. And we're going to put the shaft that we set up earlier through there. Oh, we want to put a little bit of oil on here too to help create the seal. Just a little bit of oil. That slides out through the bottom. Just like that. Now the next step, we're going to fill this up with oil and then we're going to bleed it. So I'm going to switch the camera around here. So we got this part built now. We're going to put it in the vise. Now you don't want to over crank this, and you definitely don't want to use put your titanium shaft in here without a rag, because this has to remain smooth so it can slide in and out of the shock. And then we just screw this puppy on. This is the shock eyelet. Is that what it's called? Yeah, shock eyelet. It's a little tricky to get started, especially when you have shock oil all over your hands. But once you get it started, just threads on. And you're going to need to put an eyelet in there too. So there's one side of the shock eyelet that's a little bit wider. You just kind of, well, I've been using a little tiny hammer to kind of tap it in there without the piece going every which way. So there. Now you got the eyelet in there. And we're going to fill this puppy up with oil now. So just not tightly, but just keep this straight up and down. Just kind of cinch it up in there. I've seen guys have shock tools and all kinds of stuff, but I didn't want to get into that. I just wanted to get this stuff done. And we're going to fill this up 3/4 of the way with shock oil. It came with the 35 weight. That's what the kit came with. And just want to, that's a little bit more than 3/4, but it doesn't matter. And you want to push your piston up and down. And what that does is that gets all the air out from underneath that that piston there. So you're just going to slowly do this a couple times, and you can see all the bubbles coming up to the top. And you have to wait till all that clears out of there, because you don't want any air at all in your oil. That changes the viscosity of your shock. Not good. So do that a couple times, and then just take a break. Just go watch a Mudguy video or something like that, and let all that air rise up. Alright, so we're back. The shock oil looks like it's pretty clear. I don't see any air bubbles. And we're going to top it off now, making a little dome with the shock oil. See, there's like a little dome over the top. Get some extra. We're going to bleed all that out. So take your shock cap here, aluminum shock cap. Tighten that down as far as it wants to go, and then pump your shock upwards, and it's all going to kind of gush out. That's all the excess oil. Just wipe that away with a rag. Piston kind of stays up on its own, but you don't want that to come back down. And now we're going to put your this little tiny screw in this last little seal here. We're going to dip that in oil to make a nice seal. And that's the shock cap screw, and that's gonna just, now you be careful. I lost this puppy earlier, so you just got to make sure you don't lose that. It's a really tiny little screw. That's it. Snug it up. Don't go crazy, and then just work that a little bit. I didn't get anything, a little bit bleeds out, not much, and then just tighten that puppy back up again. So wipe off all the oil. Okay, so the last steps to doing the shock here, we have to put another O-ring. This is your instead of this is your how you set your how you adjust your shock here. What is this called again? Threaded collar. Okay, but you need to put an O-ring on the inside. So last O-ring we have. Get some oil on that so that runs a little bit smoother. And you just kind of, there's a little track in here. You got to feed that into the track. It takes a little bit of time. So get all that seal in there. Now the one thing I was doing is I was putting a little bit of oil here on the threads, because you really got to screw this thing up a long way. Now the manual calls for a 8.5 millimeter gap in the at the top of the shock. So that's what I measured on the other. This is one of the rear shocks. It's a little bit tricky to get it started, but then just keep screwing. Right about like that. So put your spring on. These are color coded. I haven't learned the spring color coding system yet, but these are white springs. The front were gray. So slide that on there. Make sure your piston's out. The last thing you do is you take these 12 millimeter spring cups, slide that over the shaft, and then just kind of snap it down on the bottom of your eyelet there. And there you go. There's the shock. So got all 4 shocks ready to go. Can't mount them yet because I got to wait for that bushing to come in the mail. But the next video we'll probably be doing the tires, because I got to get the tires done. And then when that bushing comes, we'll do the bushing and get the shocks mounted up. At the same time, I'm going to put the servo mount in. That'll all be one video. And then the electronics I'm going to do, I'm going to put them in and then just talk about it. We're not going to do a step-by-step on the electronics. I want to get this thing done. So there's the shocks. Look forward to the next video, which will be tires.